Hello and welcome to another Imperator Rome dev diary, and this one is quite an interesting one. First off, it's written by Jamor, the producer of the game, so we don't have to worry about terrible date systems, Arheo? So, it is an interesting one, so let's get into it. It puts a disclaimer at the start saying that the start of the dev diary is for the internal nuts and bolts of running a dev team. So this isn't about what's going in the game. It's actually something it's getting taken out. So let's read through it, and then I'll give my thoughts on this part, and then we'll go into the meat of the dev diary. So disclaimer: the first bit of the dev diary talks about the internal nuts and bolts operation of a dev team itself, not game features. If that doesn't interest you, you can safely skip to the second portion with gameplay screenshots. Hi all, Jamor here with this week's Imperator Dev Diary. Some of you may be wondering, who's this dude? He's not Arheo or Trintragula. Well, I could never step into those inimitable shoes, but I'm in fact the producer of Imperator Rome. I mean, I wouldn't say, who's this dude? I mean, it's Jamor, it's History Whiz. Like, come on, everyone knows you. Anyway. So what does this mean exactly? Often I see people mixing up the roles of game director, technical lead and producer when talking about our teams. This is entirely understandable since in the old days when PDS was a lot smaller, the roles were often combined in one person. However, when a game and the company as a whole gets to a certain size and complexity, it pays to get a specialization of effort. Here's what Arheo, the game director, and Egladil, the tech lead, and I do. So game director, Arheo, the owner of the creative vision for the project, head of design, decides what we're going to try and do. The tech lead, Arheo, runs the technical implementation of the game, all its features and under-the-hood systems, leads and organizes the work of the programmers, master of the innumerable builds and branches we maintain, figuring out when to merge branches into the main trunk, all that kind of stuff. Figures out the how part of carrying out the goals set by the game director. And then finally, for Jamor, the producer, in charge of time and budget, making sure we put all the pieces of the puzzle together, programming, design, art, writing, script, localization, audio, backend, and store pages for all the various places our game is sold, so we can get a video game product out the door and into your hands. The slave of time, the one resource that once spent can never be got back, decides on the how much and when. So, we have a lot of autonomy within the dev teams at PDS compared to other parts of the industry. This triumvirate makes most of the technical decisions about the project, where we settle on scope that's deliverable with the time and resources we have. My colleague Shams Georgiani likes to say that ideas are cheap, and and he's 100% right. Good ideas are the absolute easiest part, and that's what I do on this channel with my suggestions videos. Good ideas, if you can call my ideas good, I don't know, that's entirely subjective. They're incredibly cheap and easy to do. Actually putting those in the game, implementing them in a way that works is an entirely other thing. That's the harder part of the equation. So, yeah, what I'm doing with my suggestions, it's not a difficult thing. Anyone can do it. You can do it. You should do it. Anyway, everyone has them. Yes, like me. The mind freed from any practical constraints and operating purely in the realm of unfettered imagination is an incredibly creative thing. When we get back to reality, though, we have to have the self-discipline to temper our exuberant dreams into something that is shippable with the team and time slots we actually have in the real world, where deadlines and interdependencies and team bandwidth exist. If we said yes to everything, we might ship a perfect, world-changing video game in 2058, but the lights would be off a lot sooner than that. That's where Jamor comes in. So what's all this mean, and why is this guy taking up a dev diary slot? First answer is Arheo, Egladil, and the rest of the team are working on finishing up 1.5 Menander, and I want them to have the maximum focus on that right now, but also subject progression, the system of evolving relationships between overlord and subject that was announced in the first overview of Menander is cut from 1.5, which is a shame because it did seem like a fairly interesting system. It really did. It is rough, right? It is rough. Subjects are something that I think definitely needed some love. So it is sad that it's going away, but for the reasons that he's about to go into, I think it's probably the right decision. Alright, let's keep reading. In my role, I have to keep on top of project scope. What this means is, do we have the people, time, and capacity from our supporting teams like DevOps, product launch, QA, art, audio localization, and general ability to ship this update with the feature set? Can we hit a date that has to be agreed with external partners like the digital stores we're on months in advance? If upon digging into implementation and finding out that we're too ambitious with our desired content for the release, the answer becomes plainly no. I have to step in and reduce scope. Sometimes, sadly, this means cutting a feature. We always try to do this before it is announced to you, the fans, but there is a constant conflict between wanting to avoid building false expectations versus wanting to meet the demand for news about future content. In this case, we announced the feature. Then, when we got into the implementation, found out that the 1.5 update was going to be heavier than we thought. So unfortunately, something had to come out. That's when duty obliges me to put on the black hat and get the chopping hatchet out. It's disappointing for us as much as you, but now at least you know who to be cranky at. I'm not going to be cranky about it. It's a disappointment, but I don't think it's not worth being, ragey about it. It's not my game director, tech lead, or anyone else in the dev team, nor the biz side of the company. Odd fate decreed that it would be me, so old QA guy and a fan of more than a decade, but as we say, it is what it is. He seems to be very much thinking that there's going to be a massive backlash, and I think the way that he's explained all this, it's very mature. It's just like, I guess, sort of treating the fan base like adults. Like, look, we had to cut it. This is the reason why. There you go. I don't think there is any need for any backlash against it. So I would encourage against that. But yeah, it does seem to be sort of saying, look, if there is any backlash, direct it at me. I don't think I'm going to direct it at you. I'm going to not direct anything at anyone. As a long-time Paradox fan who moved halfway around the world after playing our game since Hoi 2, I gotta tell you, cutting sucks. I'm a gamer too, and I want the cool thing in as much as anyone else. But if that cool thing puts us over capacity to the point where I'd have to ship it with terrible quality or at too harsh a cost on my team's well-being, I gotta cut it. There's a saying in the games industry that you have to be ready to kill your babies. What that means is that working in this creative field, that it's ruled by practical limitations of time and resources. You have to be prepared to delay, shrink, or cut your features sometimes. It's just like any other thing in life when hope meets reality. So what does this mean? Is subject progression gone forever? Probably not. In fact, as you may know, Imperator is trying out a new mode of releases for PDS. We aim to do smaller but more frequent updates compared to the massive once or twice a year things that our other games have traditionally done. I'll tell you the same thing I told my guys. When I run the numbers and things don't fit, this feature is very cool, and it deserves better than to be rushed out with poor quality. We'll pause it for now and come back to it in a future release when we have the time and resources to do it justice and make something the fans deserve. With this new style of more frequent updates, that might not be too far off in the future, wherever we can make it fit. For now, our focus will be on getting 1.5 fun, stable, and playable by all of you in time for the summer vacation period. That's great. That's, it makes sense. If you can't fit it in, if you can't do it justice, if you can't get it to the point where, you are absolutely 100% happy with it, delay it. In this day and age, I prefer delays over, badly implemented things. So I'm okay with this. So I know there's been a bit of a departure from the normal dev diary, but I hope this glimpse into the reality of production has been illuminating for you. I'll try to answer questions I can in the thread. If you want to hear more about my mindset and techniques in production, the delicate art of balancing creativity and reality, here's a talk I did at PDXCon 2018. So we're not going to watch this now, but I will leave a link to this I'll leave a link to the forums in the description below, and you'll be able to find it there. Alright, now on to some cool stuff coming in 1.5 Menander. Now this is all written by Overhaul. This week will not be lacking any feature reveal, however, as I show you a small project I've been working on in response to many of the comments about pops and pop classes that I read following the reveal of the noble pop type and cultural integration. The trade module of the game is something that I believe has the potential to augment the pop system considerably, and which should be vital to a functioning empire. In its current form, however, trade can be hard to get into, difficult to rationalize, and fails to accurately portray the sheer economic power behind goods such as dyes and spices. What this is not is What this is not, however, is a full trade rework. Right? So I think I gotta highlight this a second. I'm of the opinion that trade in itself is deserving of a season. Like we had the spring of religion, we're getting the summer of culture, we're going to have the autumn of war, and I think trade is a big enough category to deserve its own season. Winter of trade, maybe it gets pushed back to next year, spring of trade, something like that. I think it deserves that. However, changing it up now, I also am not against. A temporary change that isn't a massive overhaul, that is then later on down the line overhauled, I have no problem with that. I don't think it's a waste of resources or a waste of time. Trade does need changes, and well, let's keep reading and you'll see what those changes are. Though there may be a time to cover trade in such a manner, yes. Winter of trade, please. The purpose of this small redesign is to both integrate trade into the POP system in a more rational way, and to add some variety to trade goods while culling some of the modifier duplication. As you can see here, nobles and citizens will now be responsible for flexing their buying power, contributing to the number of trade routes present in a province. This value will directly correlate to the number of citizens and nobles and will not take POP happiness into account. That's very, very interesting. So, the amount of citizens and nobles you have will dictate how many trade routes you have. And if we go down here just a second, we'll skip this a bit. You can see that 9 nobles and 27 citizens is amounting to 3 extra trade routes. Whether it is a flat 1 extra trade route per 10 POPs of this type, I would doubt, but that would fit into this equation here. Whether nobles are worth more than citizens when it comes to the amount of trade routes they produce, that's also possible. It could be 1 every 10 for citizens and 1 every 3 or 4 or whatever for these guys, or maybe 1 every 10 and then 1 every, I don't know, whatever. But what is the case is that this particular breakdown at the moment, when the numbers are not final, produces 3 extra trade routes. So moving back up. Commerce generation has been removed from POPs, with the aim of being to use trade routes to generate wealth and keep POPs happy. Nobles currently produce a significant amount of research and play an important part in the tech system, with a moderate number of nobles doing the lion's share of the work in contributing to state research. Their happiness, however, will still be a significant hurdle to overcome. So yeah, your POPs are no longer going to be... I mean, just citizens used to give you taxes and trade, and did they give you taxes? I don't think they did actually. It was just commerce and research. Now they're not going to give you commerce. Commerce is entirely dictated by the amount of trade routes you got. So moving on again. Old buildings have also been slightly repurposed to augment the number of trade routes you'll get from POPs in a city, and work is ongoing to redefine how provincial investments will apply to the trade module. So as you can see here, there is no trade investments thing here. There's no provincial investments, sorry. But this could be a couple of reasons. It could be that you are, when this screenshot was taken, it's obviously a Carthaginian city. It is probably not Carthage that the player at this point is playing as. They could be playing as Rome and they're looking at Carthage, so that's why you wouldn't see these buttons. As well, I do think that if you are changing trade routes to be influenced by POPs, I think removing entirely the provincial investment to create a trade route is a necessity. Because as the game stands right now, in your capital, because you very rarely do it anywhere else, the vast majority of your trade routes are produced by this little button. And I would not be opposed to seeing that go away. That would fix a couple of problems. One, just fucking stupid amounts of trade routes, especially when trade routes also apply their... one of their effects is increasing the amount of pop capacity. I think it's by like 5% per trade routes. It's something along those lines. I don't remember the exact numbers. But you stack like 30 something trade routes in your capital, you're gonna, end up with a mega cap. And if you've seen my most popular video on my channel, I don't like mega caps. So I think removing this button, replacing it with something a bit more interesting, is a necessity for this system to work. And I hope they do go that way. They are saying that they're redefining how provincial investments will apply to the trade module. I feel like that's what's going to happen. The investment will do something else. Changing the buildings as well. I guess the marketplace is going to be changed in some way. Yeah, good stuff. I like it. I think this is a very promising change. I think it's a very it's a change that has a lot of potential, and it's certainly a better system than the one we currently have. So, what about the trade goods themselves? Well, most trade goods now contribute a small amount to the happiness of a pop type and will be categorized as such. So, papyrus will make the nobles a little bit more happy. I believe precious metals make citizens more happy. It is just that's the way that these go. And also, I will say that these are two separate pictures, so just because you can see citizens and nobles in both, I got a little bit confused at first. I saw, it's food, then nobles, then citizens, then nobles, then citizens, then freemen. Completely confused me, but they are separate images. But numbers next to each one of them. That's something. All right, we'll go into that. So yeah, they'll be categorized a little bit differently. Each pop type will have its own little category where, the trade goods are going to apply their happiness bonuses and stuff to the pops. So, moving on. This local bonus will now stack in the entire province, effectively rolling the provincial capital bonus and the province bonus that used to be present into one. So we no longer have the surplus per province bonus, which is good, I think. Capital surplus has remained untouched, as this was always a pretty cool way of contributing to the uniqueness of your nation, choosing which goods to spec your country with. I'm not a massive fan of it, but it's fine. Export bonus has been entirely removed, as this was something that was the hardest for me personally to rationalize, and added another layer of decision making to every trade offer or deal with a foreign nation. So, export bonus, things like I'm going to give you horses, and in return I'm going to have discipline. I also couldn't rationalize that. It made fuck all sense to me, so yeah, removing that I'm totally cool with. What the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice is that it has been replaced with a base value. This base value is related to the value of the good itself. Papyrus commands a hefty price of 0.4 gold per month, whereas leather is valued at 0.15 gold per month. Yes. So, trade value on each different good, that has been something that people have been asking for, especially me, for a very, very long time. Importing something really, really special like precious metals, gemstones, amber, papyrus, these kind of things, they cost more than importing something like grain or fish. These are very common goods. Dyes and silk and incense are not common goods. So having them have, a higher price when you're importing them, or a higher value when you're importing them, is a massively good thing. I am very much on board. Very much on board. So, yeah, there we go. An import route multiplies the goods value of 0.15 by 35%, resulting value of 0.05 is then modified by civic advances and ruler finesse. So, yeah, there we go. Importing a trade good will earn you, goddamn my words, you only 35% of the value of the good. So, yeah, importing not as valuable as it used to be, and internal trade even less. Exporting is where the true value lies, and with 100% of the trade taxes flowing directly into your coffers. It's important to remember here that as the government of your nation, you aren't purchasing the import of a trade good. You're encouraging the creation of private trade in that material from A to B. There is no reason you'd be paying to import material, although the taxes you will earn will be less to simulate the amount being spent to keep the route running at your behest. Nice. I do kind of wish that there was some kind of automated trade kind of thing going on as well. That would be pretty cool. But right now, it's good, right? If you are importing something, you get less. If you are exporting something, you get all of it. And that is sort of a way to encourage people to export, right? Because at the moment, well, not at the moment, but with this rework, if you didn't have this extra value for exporting, you wouldn't export. When all of these goods give you happiness on your pops, you're not going to want to get rid of these goods. You're going to want to stack them as high as you possibly can. And I mean, that's why you wouldn't want to get rid of them. You wouldn't want to export them. You're going to have a reason to export them. And, getting a ton of money, that's a reason to export them. So that's good. That's about the extent of the trade goods rework I'd planned. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and as usual, everything you see is work in progress, especially numbers. So I think there's a couple of things that I want to go over here, right? First off, the happiness thing. What I've seen is people not really paying this as much attention as I think it's probably worth. This is a very first off, I'm going to say I'm not taking credit for absolutely anything here, but big butt time. This is kind of what I asked for. This is kind of one of the things that I asked for when it came to trade, and that is for your pops, your citizens, your nobles, your freemen, whatever exactly. They would have lower happiness, and they would have needs, and these needs would be met by trade. This is that system. This is a very it's different to what I'd suggested, but it is in the same vein. Nobles, they're very hard to keep happy. They have low happiness until you give them what they need. Papyrus, cloth, dyes, silk, incense, marble. The nobles require or desire these goods, and if you trade them in, the nobles will be happy. That's kind of the system that I desired. That's what I've asked for. Same as citizens. Amber, spices, precious metals. These citizens require or desire these goods, and if they don't have them, they'll be unhappy, and if they do have them, they're going to get a happiness boost. That is really quite nice. What I would also kind of desire is for the trade goods to work with each other at the same time. So, nobles, if they get plus 4% happiness for papyrus, and you just stack tons of papyrus and fuck all else, none of these things, into your province, then the nobles are going to be very, very happy with this system. What I would kind of like is if they also get a sort of boost to happiness with a diversity of trade goods. So having 2 papyrus is not as good as having 1 papyrus and 1 cloth. Encouraging the player to get all of the trade goods that these nobles desire rather than just stacking the shit out of one of them. That's what I'd like to see. Another thing I'd like to see, this exact system where pops are unhappy unless they have the things they desire, I want that to be applied to buildings as well. I want the freemen to be really salty, pissed off, not happy, unless they have a forum. I want to see the citizens and the nobles really pissed off, unhappy, unless they have a marketplace. Encourage the player to have a diversity of infrastructure in their provinces instead of what the current case is if you want a research city, then you build a few libraries and then a ton of academies, and there's your research city. If you want what's called a manpower city, then you build some training grounds and you build some forums, and bada bim bada boom, you have a manpower city. I'm not a fan of that. I think having that kind of very individual cities that, this city is good at this and this city is good at this and they're fucking awful at everything else. I don't like that. I want, the freemen should want these buildings and the citizens should want these buildings, and if they don't have them, they'll be unhappy. I'd love to see this system here also implemented on buildings. So yeah, I mean that's those are my thoughts anyway. But otherwise, I think this is an incredibly promising change to trade, and having it be alongside the culture rework is a change to trade that is good, that I wasn't expecting for at least 6 months. At the very least 6 months, and it's coming before the summer break. So I'm over the moon with this. I think this is fantastic, and I can't wait to get my hands on it and give it a try. What do you guys think? Do you want to put your thoughts in the comment section below, telling me how wrong I am and that this change is terrible and I'm stupid, and something about inting and agonia, something like that? Put it all in the comment section below. I would very much like to hear your guys' opinions. Do you agree with me that this is a fantastic change that is quite necessary? Are you really salty about the removal of subject progression? Do you have ideas for any ways that in which the subjects and stuff can be changed for the better over what was, announced in the reveal from Menander? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to keep up to date with all Imperator news and updates, then hit the subscribe button. And just before I let you guys go, I want to say a big apology for the absolute catastrophe that was yesterday's stream. My streaming software just was not having it, and then while recording, my power went out for 20 minutes and the recording got corrupted. So the first session of the new community multiplayer is a complete write-off, which is great. Loving it. Anyway, so big apologies for that. Everything else, I'm happy with this change. It's great. So thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.